A community and a state turning out to say goodbye to a young Kentucky State Trooper who passed away in an off-duty accident.
A candidate for Kentucky State House is making no apologies for shocking images found on his Facebook page.
Very weird and not something that we deal with on a regular basis.
A mother and son facing charges for allegedly living in a home that had been abandoned for years.
This is WKYT News at 5:30.
Good evening to you. Today, hundreds gathered to say goodbye to a young state trooper who died in a tragic accident.
Trooper Mason Flynn died Monday when he fell while helping a friend put a roof on a barn. Friends and family and members of law enforcement all came together over the state for today's service. WKYT's Phil Pendleton talked to those who said Flynn had a big impact on many people regardless of what he was doing. It's our top story at 5:30.
A procession of police cars brought Mason Flynn on his last journey home. It also brings an end to a week that began with a sudden loss of one life, a young man that accomplished much in just a couple of years.
Mason was certainly a man of integrity. He was only 24 years old, but during that time he impacted a lot of people's lives.
Dr. Joel Patton counseled Mason and his wife just a few months ago before their marriage. On Friday, he spoke at a farewell service that attracted nearly 1,000 of Mason Flynn's family, friends, and law enforcement brotherhood.
A young man to be 24 years old and to have a character like that, it speaks a lot about him and a lot about his love for the Lord.
Trooper Flynn was known to be a positive example at all times, even sharing the good news when the job required something much different.
He was probably one of the nicest troopers out here that you will meet. He could actually give you a citation and tell you God bless you before he left you that day.
Some said Flynn really meant God bless you because he believed that God had blessed him.
It didn't always have to come out in his words. He also showed it in his actions. So he didn't leave any doubt in your mind where he was at with his God and who he loved.
Whether a grocery store worker, a star linebacker on the football team, or a lawman, many said that Mason Flynn was simply a fine young man. In Pulaski County, Phil Pendleton, WKYT.
And Trooper Flynn's family has asked that any donations in his memory be made to the Shop with a Trooper program at the London State Police Post number 11.
A candidate for Kentucky State House is making no apologies for shocking images found on his Facebook page. A word of caution, some of the images we're about to show you may be offensive. Our county-by-county coverage at 5:30 begins in Bullitt County. Dan Johnson is the bishop of the Heart of Fire Church in southeast Louisville. He's also the Republican challenger for the Kentucky's 49th district. Johnson has recently come under fire for several images found on his Facebook page, such as a photo of a chimpanzee labeled as a baby picture of President Obama. Another image had ape-like features photoshopped onto pictures of the Obama family. Johnson says the images are meant to be taken as satire.
It wasn't meant to be racist. I can tell you that. My history's good there. I can see how people would be offended in that. I wasn't trying to offend anybody. But I think, Facebook's entertaining.
Johnson's Facebook page also contains numerous images of the Confederate flag and posts critical of Islam. Several of the images have since been deleted. The chairman of the Republican Party of Kentucky released a statement Thursday saying, quote, Johnson's comments and social media posts are outrageous and have no place in today's political discourse. And in a statement released today from the Kentucky Democratic Party, it called for Johnson to drop out of the race, saying the only decent option would be for this candidate to withdraw from seeking a role as a lawmaker and representative of the people of Kentucky. And in Franklin County, a man caught selling heroin in Frankfort is now heading to prison. Brandon Campbell of Cleveland was arrested in March and charged with 2 counts of heroin distribution. Yesterday, after a 3-day trial, he was found guilty on both counts. His sentencing is set for February 1st.
A mother and son are in jail tonight. Police say the two were living in an abandoned home. LaRonda Ross and her son Charles Jackson face burglary and forgery charges. Police say neighbors became suspicious after the two moved into a home that had been abandoned for the last 2 decades. Caitlin Setner has more from Frankfort in a story that's new at 5:30.
I watch up here, I see a lot of stuff, And that day was kind of strange.
All this quiet on Cold Harbor Drive, but rewind a few months back, neighbors say there was some funny business on their street.
So I swerved in the road and she went up there to the house.
Kimberly Taylor is referring to LaRonda Ross. Back in July, people who live in this neighborhood say Ross and her son, Charles Jackson, sped up to a Frankfort home that's been empty for quite some time.
20 years. I think 20 years. We talked to her. I said, "Did you buy the house?" She said, "Yeah, I bought the house." I said, "Have you been in it?" "No, I haven't been in it."
Taylor says she felt odd about their conversation.
They got into the house. And then we heard a dog in there. And then it's like 100 degrees in there. There's no heat. There's no air and no water in the house.
The buzz around the block was that this mom and son duo didn't actually buy the house, so neighbors called police. Come to find out, police say Ross didn't buy the home. Major Rob Warfel tells us a family now living in California actually owned the home, that there's tax liens on the property, and somehow Ross knew to pay those taxes. He says she even showed them a document claiming she'd been renting it.
Very weird and not something that we deal with on a regular basis. In fact, I've been on the department here 20-some years, and I don't ever recall us ever dealing with anything like this before.
There's now a notice on the door saying this home isn't livable. The two are now behind bars in Franklin County facing burglary and forgery charges.
If it hadn't been for the vigilance of the people in the neighborhood and watching out, trying to be good neighbors, we probably would have never had this case come to our attention.
Police call this a squatting situation, but how it all came about is still a mystery. In Frankfort, Caitlin Settner, WKYT.
And both Ross and Jackson are expected in court early next week.
It has been a mixed bag of weather to end our September here in the Bluegrass, and October looks to be starting off on a pretty similar note.
Let's check in now with our chief meteorologist, Chris Bailey. Chris?
Yeah, a little sun, a little cloud cover. You've got the gusty winds, got a shower or two out there, but overall everybody getting in on the very nice temperatures. Low and mid 60s until we get into Danville and Fort Knox. We're cooler here because we've got more clouds, and we've got a couple of raindrops, dropping it to 59, by the way, into Pulaski County. Look at your Defender radar network. I've thrown the clouds into the mix so you can see how everything is spiraling around an area of low pressure that is basically right on top of the Fort Knox area. That's that big upper level low that continues to throw some showers and thunderstorms into the area, especially right underneath that. That'll pivot its way on to the north as we go through the overnight, and that may lead to some fog. And where you live, that fog can be locally thick out there. First thing tomorrow morning, check that out. Visibilities that may be under a mile early tomorrow morning, and slowly but surely that fog will lift as we go into the middle of the day. What about the rest of that weekend forecast? Pretty much what you see and feel is what you're going to get for one more day, hour by hour forecast in just a few minutes.
The deadly train crash in New Jersey is reigniting concerns about the automatic braking system called Positive Train Control, or PTC. In August, federal regulators said the system was only in place on just 5 railroads. Tonight, why installing that technology has been such a struggle. Investigators will try to determine if Positive Train Control could have prevented the speeding New Jersey Transit train from smashing into the Hoboken station.
That is absolutely one area that we always look into for every rail accident.
The technology relies on GPS satellites, radio towers, and ground sensors to monitor a train's speed and location. If it detects a train is going too fast or being operated unsafely, onboard computers will kick in to slow or stop it.
So it is taking control of the train away from me.
In January, Amtrak showed us how it works using this simulator.
And when you're over speed and it's beeping like that, it will take over at some point.
If you don't take action in 6 seconds to put enough brake on the train to satisfy it, yes, it will take over control of the train.
Nationwide, PTC is available on just 29% of passenger locomotives and 22% of passenger track miles. As of last May, commuter railroads have spent nearly $1 billion installing the pricey technology. Back in 2011, also in Hoboken, 30 people were injured in an accident involving a PATH train. 2 years later, a Metro North train derailed in the Bronx, killing 4 people. And in May 2015, 8 people died and more than 200 were hurt when this Amtrak train derailed in Philadelphia. Investigators say PTC would have likely prevented them all. And no New Jersey trains have that technology. That train system doesn't expect to have it running until at least 2018. The American Public Transportation Association says commuter railroads are 100% committed to PTC, but estimates the final cost will be about $3.5 billion. That's far more than Congress has set aside to install PTC.
The president and first lady of Morehead State University received a special honor today. That story in just 6 minutes here on WKYT.
I'm Bill Bryant. Democrat Nancy Jo Kemper talks about her race for Congress in central Kentucky against incumbent Andy Barr. And something you won't be finding out before the vice presidential debate. The bottom line is ahead.
Democratic congressional nominee Nancy Jo Kemper says she's determined to get her opponent out of office.
And Donald Trump goes on the attack in a series of late-night tweets. Bill Bryant has the details in the bottom line.
Good evening. She acknowledges that she doesn't have the money or the name identification of Central Kentucky Congressman Andy Barr, but Democratic nominee Nancy Jo Kemper says she is determined to get him out of office. Kemper appears with me on this weekend's edition of Kentucky Newsmakers. She calls for a higher minimum wage, more federal spending on education, and says her background as a minister helps her understand some aspects of national security that others may overlook. Kemper says she got in this race because the country needs its divisions healed.
And as I began to watch this fall season unfold in the political world across America, I became more and more alarmed. Our good friend Wendell Berry's got a wonderful poem that says, "To be sane in a mad time is bad for the brain and worse for the heart." And my head began to hurt, and then my heart began to ache at all the ugly rhetoric and all the division.
The full interview with Kemper will run on Kentucky Newsmakers Sunday morning at 6 on WKYT. It repeats Sunday at 10 a.m. on the CW Lexington. You can set your DVR or catch it then. Kemper again called on Barr to return contributions tied to Wells Fargo, the national financial giant that admits it opened up accounts without its customers' permission. Barr heavily criticized Wells Fargo for the fake account scandal during a hearing on Capitol Hill. He says he's concerned that people's credit scores may have been hurt by the accounts that were opened up without permission or by overdraft fees and charges that may have shown up as a result. Barr will appear with us on Kentucky Newsmakers in October. Donald Trump is doubling down on his attacks on former Miss Universe. Trump unleashed a series of tweets today saying that Hillary Clinton had shown bad judgment in using Alicia Machado as a paragon of virtue, and that Machado has a terrible past, the words of Trump. A Clinton spokesman took to Twitter to say of Trump's remarks, "What kind of human being is this?" The vice presidential candidates are busy getting ready for their only debate, and that will be on Tuesday night. And we've learned that the topics will not be announced ahead of time as they were in the first presidential debate. U.S. Senate candidate Lexington Mayor Jim Gray spoke to Commerce Lexington this morning. He was asked about everything from ISIS to the economy to how Kentucky can beat Alabama tomorrow. Incumbent Rand Paul will address the group Tuesday. Bill Bryant, WKYT.
A new residence hall at Morehead State University is being named for the college's president and first lady. This afternoon, the new $28 million residence hall was dedicated and named for Wayne and Susan Andrews. The hall will house 550 students. The Andrews are in their 13th year at MSU and are retiring at the conclusion of the spring of 2017 semester. Students are scheduled to officially move into Andrews Hall in late October.
Now, your hour-by-hour forecast with Chief Meteorologist Chris Bailey.
Well, depending on where you are today, the weather can be vastly different. Go a few miles down the road, you may see a shower, some clouds, a few more miles, a little sun, and then you kind of repeat the process. Everybody, though, dealing with very pleasant temperatures and actually much cooler than normal for the final day of September. More typical of, dare I say, late October, maybe Halloweenish. Low 60s in parts of central Kentucky, 59, Danville and Somerset. Low pressure, it's still there. Same low we were talking about last week that would impact our weather all week long, and it is there. It's done the trick. It'll hang around for the better part of the weekend as well, although pulling away. Watch what is happening around this low. Notice how everything goes counterclockwise right on into that low. Look how the clouds are coming back at us from the southwest into parts of central Kentucky, and we are dealing with at least an isolated shower or two. Got a little drop of rain here in the parts of Garrett County. A few more drops across parts of Anderson County. Nothing that is heavy, but that's the trend around an area of low pressure. So guess what happens tomorrow? You can still get a shower or thunderstorm to spin around that bad boy as it lifts its way to the north. Windy, and it's cool with a lot of 60s showing up again. A leftover shower is going to try to linger around into Sunday now. Temperatures will come up a few degrees, and early next week, the numbers will continue to rise. What about rain chances? Scattered stuff this weekend. Then we get toward the end of next week. Thursday, you know what? Looking at some of the latest data, I may flip-flop those. May have a little better chance on Thursday than Friday, all about the timing of the next front that is into town, and I think that may be on the second half of Thursday and a Thursday night. Concentrate on your weekend now. Whatever's out there this evening will begin to dissipate. See all the clouds here tomorrow morning? You know what that is? That's the model likely seeing fog. That can be very thick tonight and tomorrow morning. Second half of tomorrow, as that low pulls away, watch the western and southwestern sky, maybe even the south, for a little bit of shower and thunderstorm action to crank up and lift on in to central and eastern Kentucky. Sunday, a little fog in the morning, and see the green? Can't rule out a little isolated shower storm going up into the afternoon. Monday morning, notice how the clouds build in. Fog again showing up as we go into Monday morning. So we've got some pea soup potential over the next 2 or 3 mornings out there. So be advised if you're going to be up and at 'em traveling early this weekend and even into early next week too. When temperatures start to rebound, that first few days of October, temperature-wise, very, very nice. End of next week, likely a strong cold front arriving on Thursday to knock the temperatures back down into the 60s.
We were just talking about the race for the cure at 5 o'clock. We're both going to be down there tomorrow, as well as some of our closest hundreds of friends. So.
And the hour-by-hour fog forecast had visibilities under a mile early in the morning in Lexington. So be advised. All right?
Tricky running.
Right now it looks dry, though.
All right.
Good.
Good news. Thank you, sir.
Police are working about 4 collisions right now, including one that's causing us some on Nicholasville Road near Tiverton. That turns out to be a 9-injury crash. There's also on an I-75. This one is northbound near the 115-mile mark.
Thank you, Officer Don. Just ahead, a change in the staff of John Calipari.
Well, that's right. The change in roles had been temporary, but now it is permanent. We'll tell you about it. And the Cats have been doing a great job running the football, but what about going up against the best run defense in the nation? That's next on WKYT. UK assistant John Robick has been with John Calipari for nearly 30 years, dating back to Cal's days at UMass in 1988. Calipari announcing today that Robick will swap roles with Joel Justice. Justice begins his 3rd season with the Wildcats. He was director of analytics his first season before moving into the role of special assistant to the head coach. Cal said Robick will continue to scout future opponents, help with the game plan, but per NCAA rules, he won't be allowed to work with or instruct players on the court. Justice filled in on the road recruiting earlier this year when Robick dealt with the death of his father. Kentucky and Alabama tomorrow night, and the #1 ranked Crimson Tide is now moved to a 35.5-point favorite. The Cats go in coming off their best game of the season, that 17-10 win over South Carolina. UK ran the ball for 216 yards, and the Cats would like to keep running it tomorrow night.
You know, I think we're running the ball well, and we'll have a challenge this week. They're the best in the country at run defense, I believe. And so it'll be a challenge. You got to stay on blocks, you got to run the boards, and you've got to sustain. If you don't sustain, it's going to be a long road.
For us, we just want to play our game, and go out there, everybody do their job, and make sure that when we do our job, we're successful. And so, like I said, when we go out there, we want to make sure that all 11 guys are doing what they need to do for us to be successful. And like I said, we just want to go down there and give ourselves a chance to win.
#1 Alabama, Bryant-Denny Stadium tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. The game's on ESPN. High school football on this Friday night. Bryan Station heading over to Lafayette in a non-district matchup. Bryan Station 3-3 on the year. Turnovers have been a huge key to the season. It's been a problem on offense with 12 interceptions. If the defenders want to upset the Generals, turnovers cannot happen.
Well, I think we have to just come out and play hard as a team unit. We can't make mental errors. The past few games, we made a lot of mental errors, and Coach always told us in film, we just got to learn from our mistakes and get better. So I think that's what we need to do to come out.
Well, turnovers been big for us. We probably have had more turnovers in half the season than we had in the last couple of years. So turnovers have been big. When you play good teams, it's a tougher schedule we play. When you have 4 or 5 turnovers, 6 in some cases, it's hard to beat good teams.
Brian Milam will be here at 11 with all the highlights. I'll be back at 6. Stay with us.